But to a more pleasant topic. Yaela, thank you for persevering with the technical difficulties.
Thank you
Um,
for being patient.
we are,
Sometimes my computer is fast with Zoom, other times it's slow with Zoom. So I always have it up, ready to go, but sometimes it doesn't like to cooperate. So
no problem.
thankfully today was one of the days where it didn't take several minutes. So that's a good thing.
Yes, definitely. Welcome to a Sip of Torah, our monthly program where you provide your own beverage, which I can never manage on this digital background to look appropriate, but this is just a cup of water. And
That counts.
we provide some Torah, and this month of ER. I do know the month. Bunch of people corrected me, and I'm sorry I made that mistake. We are pleased to present Yaela Goldblatt. Speaking about, I'm sorry, I have it right over here,
Okay.
and I don't have it right over here. I know it's about Israel,
Yes, I can
and
say it.
thank you. I thought I had it right there.
That's okay. So I was trying to think the best way to title it because there's just so much that I was trying to think, how do I say it? So I basically called it Israel's Impact, My Experiences in Our Homeland. I figured that's
Yeah,
probably the most clearest, direct approach to what I want to say.
go ahead.
Thank you. So first of all, tail end of Pesach Sheni, belated Happy Yom Ha'atzmaut, belated everything.
Mhm.
So where do I begin? So, ever since childhood, I felt a very strong love of Israel and desire to be visiting, knowing that it's my homeland, knowing that I have the connection to the flag, to the people, to the country. And ever since I was a kid, I always would say, oh, it'd be so great to go to Israel one day. I know it'll happen. And then I, of course, knew about birthright even as a kid, but I said, well, yeah, that's, too far in advance. I don't need to worry about that right now. Um, so it was always a dream that I wanted to pursue. I knew at some point it would happen, just didn't really know the right timing. So after I graduated high school and then going through college, that's when I became the age for birthright. And at that point, I knew that now that I was eligible, there would be all different types of trips I could take. And I certainly had a span of years. At that point, I was 18 and I could take it. So different opportunities I thought might have come up, but I said, nah, I got time. I got time. I got time. I don't have to rush. Not that I don't want to go, but I don't have to rush. Right now college is in play. And that was really the forefront of my focus in terms of what I need to focus on right now. So I said, Israel will be there. I didn't decide to do seminary, so I didn't have that opportunity. But, and I'll probably repeat this many times, I'll say that it was meant to be for a reason. So anyways, fast forward to around when the pandemic begins. I'm finally feeling that I'm ready and closer to visiting Israel. And I thought hopefully by fall of 2020, I would
Mm,
be able to do birthright because I looked into how often they run trips. And I figured that would be a good time. It would be enough time to prepare, enough time, this. I got my passport. Oh, so excited. Nothing to worry about. And then, of course, that doesn't happen. So I think at that point, since I was starting to feel the drive of wanting to go to Israel more, but it seems so out of reach, and figured, when am I going to get to go now? Because I was very careful with the pandemic, even going into work, it was super careful and super protective of everything going on. I wasn't even in work for several months. So it really started to dawn on me, when am I going to get to do it? When am I going to get to go? When am I going to feel safe enough and comfortable enough and healthy, so to speak, to be able to do this? So flash forward now again, summer 22. At this point, unfortunately, I had been diagnosed at that point with long COVID for ultimately 7.5 months, and not fun. The worst part was obviously the first period, but the symptoms just lingered and impacted a lot of things. Then it really was bothering me because I knew, A, with birthright, I still really wanted to do it. And I had time still, but my age was starting to come up in terms for my final year or so that I could go. And also, I wanted to go and finally experience it and visit. As probably all of you know, we're very close with the Weidmans. They all made Aliyah. They're all there. I missed them. I wanted to see them, but how could I do it? I didn't feel well. Is it even safe? Was my doctor okay with it? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? However, again, as Hashem clearly orchestrates everything, as it happened, David, the younger brother, became engaged. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's getting married. How can I not go to this wedding? But oh, what do I do? What do I do? Oh my God, oh my God. So many questions running through my head. But I said, look, if I don't go, I'm going to regret it. Maybe this is finally the time when I'm going to get to go. This is the right time that I need to be there. So I said, yes, I'm going to plan this. And I spoke with his mom, who was also coming from the States. So we said we can travel together. Great. So she does all the planning and tells me the details, et cetera, what I need to know. And I'm all excited and still nervous because COVID's still so fresh and people have moved on to different levels, but what do I do? And I'm still dealing with it. So as it turned out, Israel was really what knocked my bit of nuisance, and I mean like this much left of symptoms out of my system. Snapped it just like that. Within, if even a few days, I didn't even notice any of the symptoms that I had been noticing. So going on to the actual traveling, it just seemed like so many emotions running through my mind. Like, oh my gosh, I'm finally getting to go. Oh my gosh, I'm doing an international flight. Oh my gosh, I'm going to Israel. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it took a lot to process. And it really was hard to fully envision it until I think when I stepped onto the plane. This happened that it was not El Al, it was actually American Airlines. But previous subsequent further trips, sorry, were El Al. So that was a whole different experience, but that's for later. Either way, I get on there and I'm getting comfortable just saying, oh, here's the plane. This is my time finally getting to go. I'm going to see the Weidmans. I'm going to be there for the wedding. I'm going to get to go and see everything in Israel as best as I can, whatever time I had, which was 3 weeks. And then I hear the pilot and the stewardesses, flight attendants, everyone a reference, talking in Hebrew. That's when it starts dawning on me. Oh, wait, I'm actually going. Then you have the video that they show you of the pre-trip, in case there's an emergency, God forbid. They first show you in Hebrew, then they show you in English. That's starting to already be like, okay, this is starting to get a little real here.
On American Airlines?
Yeah, even on American. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And I've been told some things to expect with the flight. Just in general, like what kind of happens on flights to Israel, which really blew my mind, especially at the end when where I happened to be seated, it was in the middle of the plane and I was on the right side. So the closest I could have looked out a window would have been to the right side if the person had their window open, their shade, I should say, which they didn't. So I didn't really get to see anything going on until the last half hour. Even though I couldn't fully see, I was able at least just to see glimpses. Once we were actually flying over Israel and we were approaching it, that's when it really was starting to continue to hit me and hit me and hit me. Like, is this really happening? I kept repeating to myself, am I really doing this? Am I really here? Is this happening? Is this happening? And then I see it, and the plane starts getting really close to descent, and it's actually to the point where it's landing. I felt tears. I felt like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is really, really happening. And that's when, and here's where I say that one of the things I was told can be very common on flights to Israel is how once the plane lands, everybody's clapping and cheering. I did not expect it. I definitely was all for it. And then seeing everybody else excited and like, such a great flight, such a great flight. That only added to it. I walked off the plane, and all I think of is, I didn't actually do this, but I almost feel like, should I kiss the ground or something? Like, what do I do? Because I've heard some people do that when they like first time coming to Israel because they're just so excited and they can't believe they're really there. But I just am walking, I'm almost in a trance. I'm walking down off the plane and I see, like, oh my gosh, everything's in Hebrew. I'm starting to see signs. I'm seeing people speaking in Hebrew. Wait a minute, this is really happening now. And I kept like through tears, not sobbing, but tears, I kept saying like, oh my gosh, thank you, Hashem, thank you, Hashem, thank you, Hashem, thank you, Hashem. This really is coming true. We go through, get the bags, get everything, and then I see the Weidman boys who are picking us up. If you think everything else up until that point didn't signify I was in Israel, seeing them was like, okay, yeah, you're officially here because you know they live there. You haven't seen them. You're here. And seeing palm trees, that was pretty remarkable to me because I never really seen a palm tree up close and personal. And I said, wow, there's palm trees here. Didn't think. Also, I probably had jet lag, so even more so, I wasn't thinking in those terms. But they were like, yeah, it's a desert here. You know, it's not just in Florida or California. There's palm trees. So little things like that I probably wouldn't think of as part of like an Israel experience, but it just really got me to see the lay of the land, so to speak. And then driving around to different places throughout my trip, I ultimately stayed in two different places there. One was in the desert, literally in a yishuv there, and the other was in a small city that's about 20 minutes from Tel Aviv. So two totally different perspectives, two totally different crowds of Jews to be encountering or potentially be encountering. Very eye-opening in many ways, especially just looking at the desert. It's vast. I'm standing trying to look and take pictures or just grasp because everywhere where I'm standing encircling me is mountains, sand, rock, desert. That wow, this is just this is really this is the desert in Israel. And at one point, that first day, especially in the sunrise, I didn't really see the night before because we drove from the airport and I was really not feeling great, just so much going on. It didn't really all click to me until later on the next morning when I look out the window and I see that we were in the desert and I just was like a magnificent view just at sunrise. And it really just impacted me. Like I can feel and see the picture in my mind. If I could, I don't even think I could illustrate it because it's just probably would never be truthful to the true experience. Also, something I'm told that day is as I'm saying to the Weidmans, at least that, specific one of the kids that I was staying with, I was saying, wow, like you're so lucky in a sense. I mean, to be in the desert, wow, you're like right in the heart of our, our desert here. And I'm told, yes, this is the place, maybe not literally the place, but hypothetically, this is where Abraham walked with his flocks. What? Having been taught something like that throughout my life, every Chumash class, every time I looked in the Chumash, everything that I'm taught, and that you're standing potentially in that spot where Abraham stood, where Yitzchak, where Yaakov, where Bnei Israel walked their very feet, we're on that spot, more or less. It really started to click to me inside. And within a few days, I was really starting to feel like something different inside. I mean, was stirring up, something that I had really never experienced. And ultimately, by the end of that first week, that first Shabbos, I didn't even hesitate when I just out loud said to myself, and then even maybe out loud to them, was, I feel like I'm at home. I couldn't believe because I've never, probably many of you know that I haven't really done a lot of traveling. I have never lived outside of Sharon. I've never lived outside this house. So for me to say that, and I look at myself for a second, I say, wait a minute, did you just say that? It really just blew my mind. The fact that I felt that. And one by one, I was starting to hear from them telling me throughout the trip, but especially even just in that first week, like, yeah, Ayla, I've never seen you so happy. I've never seen you so ecstatic and so alive, so enlightened. And mind you, these guys have known me almost my whole life. So they know more or less every in and out about me, my personality, everything. And even they were noticing it. And they were saying, like, you've changed. You're a different person. And I thought, really? Am I? Maybe. Maybe is this what I need to be hearing? Is something inside me saying, like, yes, this is the inspiration, the encouragement you need to be hearing because this is going to decide your life, or at least start to direct you into a potential decision for your life. So throughout that trip, we didn't get to do a lot of traveling just because everybody's schedules and the wedding and staying between two different places. So I didn't go very far because I also didn't have a working cell phone. And it was my first time I did not feel comfortable to go out on my own unless I was with one of them, just because it's just how I felt. But throughout the places that I did go, it was mostly just some of the um like different cities, different towns we would drive through, very residential, very big names, some of them. And as I think I said before, just driving, I was excited being on the highway. I'd see all the signs marking like the exit, pointing this way, or like this way to Tel Aviv, this way to Petach Tikva, this way to Yerushalayim, wherever. And it is really wow, seeing that and seeing these really license plates. I mean, maybe not everybody would think of that, but that's just for me, my first experience. That's what it seemed like. It just was exciting just to go on the roads and just seeing not only that, but just the different kinds of Jews and hearing the Hebrew being expressed and seeing Shemitah. It was Shemitah, the final end of Shemitah, or tail end, I should say, of Shemitah. So seeing these big signs, especially more so maybe I noticed on the highway. I noticed this a few times, but they had big sign Shemitah and said other things, but we were driving and I probably couldn't focus, but I did catch that. And then I see the fields being left untouched. Wow, like I've learned about Shemitah, but you're really seeing it firsthand in this way. One place I did get to go was Yerushalayim, and that really I was a big eye opener, and that again caused a lot of emotion deep inside, like something in my heart was just crying out, like, "Oh my gosh, you're here!" And I just kept thinking, like, "Oh my God, am I really here? Am I really here?" Like I'm on the steps going into the old city, and then walking through the old city, and then approaching the Kosel and then going to the Kosel and getting to touch it. I just kept going like this with tears, with happiness, with tefillah, with every bit of energy in my body. Just, oh, I'm really here. I want to take you with me in a sense. Obviously, I can't take the stones, but it really was just very moving, very awe-inspiring, very beautiful. And after that, within halfway through the trip, I started to have, especially with a couple of the Weidman kids, I started to have this conversation about maybe is this my future? And that's what starts getting the ball rolling to where I ultimately end up today. There's more to the story, but that's just the seeds being planted. Maybe you need to spend a trial period here. Take a period of time to stay in Israel that's longer than a visit, but not making Aliyah, because all of a sudden it made me think, like, is Aliyah a possibility? Is it really a possibility? It's up until that point, they knew this, but I never known where to go. Where do I go? I've been told, oh, you need to move out of Sharon. I can see for various reasons why it would be beneficial for me. It's not that I don't want to, but how do I go about doing it? Where do I go about doing it? And it really started to make me think, maybe is this it? So after that trip, it got me to get the gears turning. And even as I'm still there, I'm thinking back to what I had done, and I'm only halfway through. And it's already, again, without hesitation, yeah, maybe this is what I need to do. Boy, I didn't think that I would be saying this from the time that I left to go to the airport and then fly. That was never in my mindset, honestly. Even the
A
wedding.
birthright trip, Yaela?
Oh, this isn't, no, this is my first trip for David Weidman's wedding.
Oh,
Yeah, this is the very first experience. I'm approaching birthright though.
okay.
Trying to give like a generalization from start to finish because it's a lot, but I'm trying to cram in and not, miss out, but at the same time give the summary, so to speak. Um, so let me think. Just trying to make sure where was I? Oh yeah. So the wedding takes place, and not only was I, oh my gosh, David's getting married. He's like a brother to me. Like, this is great. This is great. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. But I was told, not obviously not like the chuppah and the ceremony, so to speak, because that's something I expected. The only difference was it was all in Hebrew. So I knew what to expect, but it was hard to, at some points follow along just because I wasn't used to it, without the English. But I still was able to, obviously I knew what was taking place because I'd been to weddings. But the celebration part was very unique to me. And I asked, I think after the wedding, I think I asked this, but like I said, is this common? It was very lively. And I don't mean like a lively wedding. I mean like party, like you've never partied before. And I had never experienced anything like that. I felt like I was in a trance. The music, the sound, the dancing, the energy, everybody was just cheering and screaming. I think I lost my voice. I've
Hmm.
never screamed or moved like that. I just felt like my body was being taken over in a sense and just adding to it. And I said, like, is this common? I mean, I know everybody, does different weddings, but is this like a common thing in Israel? And I was told, yeah, a lot of times people will be very like weddings like this. This is what a lot of people in Israel do. So that was an interesting perspective. Just as a side thing, but still, it was very eye-opening. The time comes to leave, and on the one hand, I'm happy because I'll get to come home. I'll get to share my experiences with my parents, people that I know, and just get back to like not having to, so to speak, live out of a suitcase. But at the same time, it feels very weird because I think I miss my parents and I did speak to them regularly. It's not like I didn't have any communication. I sent them pictures, we talked, so that definitely wasn't a problem. But as I'm getting ready to leave and I'm walking through the airport, I start to feel something inside of me. And the further in that I went, I felt it getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And it felt like something like pulling me like right in my chest, in my heart. It felt like it's very strange energy or something. And it felt like also tearing me in half. And I turned to their mom and I said, I feel kind of strange. So she's like, are you okay? Like, do you feel sick? Is it your head, your stomach? I'm like, no, 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 that's fine. It's fine. That's not the problem. So she said, well, what's the matter? Like, are you okay? Or you need to sit down? I said, no, no, that's not it. I said, and I explained to her those very words, and she was just blown away. She said, wow, like I've never heard or experienced that before. And I felt like I really was getting a tearing, like some part of me was staying. I know like a lot of people say, like, no matter what, part of you is always there, especially once you go. But really, I felt it in a very deep way. And it just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And I couldn't believe it. I said, is this really happening? By the time I actually on the plane and they're getting ready to take off, everything's fine taxiing, everything's fine getting onto the plane. But when the engines start revving up and I feel I'm sitting in my seat, holding on because I don't like takeoff and landing. So I'm just sitting there trying to keep myself calm in general. And all of a sudden, I start feeling tears in my eyes. And I think, wow, I want to go home, but I don't want to leave. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, Hashem, I want to go home, but please don't make the plane take off. Please don't make it take off. And as it goes up, I'm like, oh. I think, boy, my poor parents. But obviously it wasn't, from that perspective. And I'm sitting there in my seat, and all I do can think of is I just, from the best that I can see, look out the window with the tears. I'm like, goodbye, Israel. I'm not, I'm not leaving you forever. Don't worry. And I think as a result, it really made me come home as a changed person. As I said, things that I was not expecting. And it really set into motion for the first time, where can I go from here?
Yeah, Ella, when was I know I have a rough idea when your birthright trip was. When was the wedding trip?
I'm almost gonna say September, it wasn't September. August 22.
Oh gosh, so you went really in the hot time too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it was right in the middle of the 3 weeks, so I even got to spend the 9 days in Tisha B'Av there.
Hmm.
That was fun.
And
But
when was the birthright trip?
birthright was 10 days.
No, when was it?
Oh, when that was actually the next thing I was just gonna say. Like
Okay.
after, so once I came home, I felt like one of the things that had come up during these discussions was about like my future and like maybe a trial period is you got to do birthright. You got to do birthright. Like, like you're so lucky that you can do birthright. Like, we can't, I can't do that. Meaning like Shai and David, you got to do it. You got to do it. So even more so at that point, I said, yes, I have to do it. And I'm now approaching 26. So that's the latest I can go. Let's get this going. Within a month of coming home, I had signed up, and it was going to be that following January. So it was about a 5 month wait.
Mhm.
It seemed a little too long for me, but it was exciting though, like waiting and like, yes, I'm going to get to go back. Yes, I'm going to go back. Finally get birthright, finally get birthright. So I go to New York. I meet up with the group because that's where we were flying out of. This time actually was my first El Al trip. So that was a whole new experience, like experiencing what I had before. But now you're in Israel's airline. It's really different than in American or probably any other airline because it's Israel's. And you have that even more like deeper connection. Like, yeah, this is the one that takes everybody straight to Israel. That's their big thing. So I get there and I meet up with the group, and it's exciting. There's a lot of different people, men and women, all in that same age range. It was basically 18 to 26. And like, wow, like finally getting to do birthright. Look at all these people I can befriend. Nobody lives around here, but it didn't matter. It's like more peers I can meet, more people that I can add to my social circle, my friendships. So right away, I already hit it off with a few people. And then as the trip progressed, I hit it off with more people. And ultimately, everybody is still in touch periodically, at least with our WhatsApp chat. But several people in particular, I became very good friends with. And we even had 8 Israelis, men and women, three of them who at the time were actually serving. Two of them, I think, are still serving at this point. But that was exciting because you got to have not only like the birthright experience, but you got to have from Israeli perspectives. From they are raised in Israel. They know the culture, they know the music, they know everything about Israel. And then we got to learn from each other. And we got to have that experience for 5 days. It was a 10-day trip. 5 days we had the Israelis. Unfortunately, they couldn't stay longer. We begged our tour guide, even the Israelis begged the tour guide. It was fabulous. Like, can we stay? But they couldn't just because not every group always works out sometimes. So that's why they have to keep it, just that period of time. But when between when we did have them and just us, the Americans, we did a lot of different things that kind of was like an additional from my previous trips. I said, my first trip was about daily life in Israel. This is what it's like seeing from different perspectives, basically from three different point of views, different areas in Israel. What is it like? Here is a little bit more sightseeing, a little bit more visiting historical, getting to bond, getting to go up and down Israel, places that I may or may not know of. Like we rode ATVs and the go on. We hiked a mountain. We rode camels at sunrise. We went to the Dead Sea, Masada, Yerushalayim, Tzfat. We went all different places. And they managed to cram it in into such a short time.
Oh.
But
Jeez.
even
18.
then, on that occurrence, I was still feeling like the energy growing and growing, more so of like, wow, like I'm back here. And I felt like, I'm asking myself, is it meant that I should be here? It was starting to become even clearer, like, yes, like I'm having such a great time. I don't want to leave. I even shared my story Friday night. We all had dinner together at the OU building in Yerushalayim, and everybody got a chance to kind of share their own personal stories. So I felt like, I feel comfortable with everybody. I want to get up and tell them what Israel means to me and being a part of this group, how much it's changed my life. And I did. And that was very encouraging for me just to hear myself expressing it. And everybody just couldn't believe how Israel's impacted me and the different perspectives it's given me. And people were asking, like, yeah, you gonna spend some time here? You gonna spend some time here? Like, well, yes, this is potentially the plan. So by the time we left, I was starting to feel those same emotions again. And even more so increased energy. Like I feel like I'm really sensitive to the energy there. And now exploring even more places in addition to my previous trip, I could really feel things stirring inside me, different things that I never felt. And I turned to a friend of mine who I'd met on the trip about these feelings. Like I'm in the airport and all of a sudden I start getting that emotional feeling again. And I'm talking to her. I say, I'm happy. I got to be on birthright, but and I get to meet all these people and I get to go home and now share these experiences, but I still don't want to leave. And I didn't feel embarrassed, but I just felt like, wow, like 2 times in a row, I'm feeling the same feeling. There's something to this here. And my friend turns to me, she says, yeah, Ayla, I think you're meant to be here. You need to spend time here because your body's clearly saying, your heart's clearly saying, your mind, that Israel is really impacting you in ways that you need to find out more. And maybe this is where you're meant to be. Even though I probably figured that myself, but hearing somebody else saying that right from the heart, and she was crying, and it made her even emotional to hear just how much it was impacting me. So plane takes off again. I'm like, I want to go home, but I don't want to go home. So fast forward, once I get home, I say, yes, okay, this is really going to be a plan. I think I really got to spend this time here. I'm then contacted by Masa Israel. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but for anybody who hasn't heard of it, it's basically an organization that brings young adults to Israel for various periods of time, different types of programs. You can volunteer, you can teach, you can do participate, I should say, in internships. You could do a combination. You could do seminary. If you're a boy, you could do yeshiva. There's all different things you can do. And it's the largest and most known in Israel, if I'm not mistaken. And it's been around for a long time. So I had heard of them a little bit here and there. But then, right when I get back from Birthright, a few days later, I get an email. Hey, Ayla, my name is whatever. I think it was a woman. I heard that you went to Birthright. That's great. I hope you had a great time. Do you want to come back? Are you curious? So, if you are, here's a way to schedule and find out more about us. So then it really started to click back to that trial period, as I call it, being there for a period of time where maybe this might help to decide certain things and give me clarity about certain things that I need to figure out for my life at this point. And I started pursuing them, but at the same time, I said, I'm not going to, even if though I want to pursue this trial, I'm not going to do it until I have at least one more trip that I go, and I'll do it myself. That was a big thing. It took a while to get things planned out just because of my own, I was dealing with some health things and just scheduling and availability because I stayed with different friends there. So I had to see like who, for 3 weeks, am I splitting up the time? Can I stay with them? And then it also happened that it was going to fall over the Chagim. You don't know if people have family that are going to come or they're going to go to family. So it took a bit of time to really get everything into place. But some part of me was just saying, Ayla, you got to do it before slash during the holidays. If you wait till after, it's just not going to work out because your friends, if you want to see them, they're going to be going back to school. They're going to be back in work. They're not going to be as available if you want to also meet up with them. I mean, I wasn't expecting, every day to be seeing people for the whole day because I know people still have their own lives there. But in the meantime, I knew at least that there'd be more flexibility. So I said, okay, if it's not now, it ain't happening. It's just not happening. So I got everything in place. I made the arrangements. I got the flight and I went and a whole new set of experiences, emotions. Oh my gosh, I'm doing this myself. Oh my gosh, wow. What it took a bit of adjustment because I think I had a little bit of fear. Like, what did I just do? Oh my God. But I have very supportive friends, thank God, who really helped me to feel like by the time your trip is over, you're going to say, what was I all upset about? What was the problem? So once I'm there and I get acclimated, it's not long before Rosh Hashanah is starting, but I have just enough time to not only acclimate, but start to get familiar with Israel now, combining both birthright and my first trip of places that I want to see while experiencing daily life, encountering things on a daily basis. Big thing, learning transit. I don't even really go into Boston that often and use the MBTA. I've done it, but not enough. So that was new. And especially in Israel, learning their Ravkav, their card that you use for transit. And what do you do for the train? What do you do for the bus? And oh, the bus doesn't stop. I heard that I now since realized that this is not necessarily just true in Israel, but the bus doesn't stop at every stop unless you push the Atzur button. You gotta go. This is where you tell the driver, okay, gotta get off here, gotta get off here. So that was new. And I figured that this would be a big help, just that one aspect, just learning how to get around Israel and seeing what is it actually like between the different transit methods and going to all different locations depending on where I stayed. What could that be like if I would be there long term? Because I'm going to need to rely on that. I don't know necessarily if I'm going to rent a car when I'm there, so I'm going to rely on transit. So that really was interesting. And it took a little time, a little bit of getting comfortable, used to it. But by the following week, it was getting to be a pro. And so that was encouraging to me. So, yeah, like if I can do this, I don't think I should have a problem if I come here long term. And it should be already used to it. I got know the system, I know what it's like. And that was a big thing. Spending Chagim in Israel. I never was away for a holiday before. And especially in Israel, of all places, it's going to be even more magical of an opportunity. And seeing just what it's like for people there, like how do they celebrate it? And seeing the achdus, the energy, the excitement, the love. And I kept thinking, like, as they're davening and they're dancing and they're singing, like I think like, yeah, like Hashem's so close. He's even closer than for us. He's just right there. So that was very eye-opening and gave me a lot to think about also. I had a lot of discussions with not only the people I stayed with, but people that they're friendly with. And they were asking me different things about like what's my drive to come to Israel? What is my experience? What's it like even just being an American, from woman? What's it like, in Boston area? What everything. So it was interesting just to share my experiences. And I think it helped me to grow also because I could see just in this short span of time, it's not even 2 years, how much I think I've changed and matured in ways and grown spiritually and physically, and emotionally. So by the time I was getting ready to leave this trip, I said to myself, you're sure you want to do this? Ask yourself now while you're here, while you're living the life, while you're experiencing this, while you feel healthy, while you feel alive, while you're seeing people that you don't get to see, you're getting to feel the energy, go to the places that you've been longing and praying to see. Do you want to do this? Do you really want to consider this as your part of your life? Maybe not permanent, because it's too early to say that, but at least for right now. Because ever since that first trip, I've had this feeling like Hashem is saying, Yaela, you got to be there for a period of time. You've got to be there. I can't tell you yet if it's permanent, but you need to at least be there for a period and see what it's like for you to live there and experience things for yourself in that way. So I answered when I was able to answer that question after I asked myself, I said, "Oh, am I kidding? Of course I got to do this. Yes. If I don't, nothing's going to change for me." And I think honestly, other than Sharon, for the first time, I feel, as I said in the beginning, I feel at home. I feel like this is where I'm meant to be. At least at this point in my life, I need to make connections. I need to explore more and maybe even figure out another layer of who I am. Who knows? Sky's the limit to the possibilities. So ultimately, at this point, where I stand is I am currently in search of a MASA program because I would like to do an internship in my field, which is graphic design, and trying to sift through. Thankfully, they've got there's an amazing woman that I work with who's a program coordinator, and she's been able to point me in different directions to explore. I did have a bit of a setback this weekend when the program I thought was the one for me suddenly dropped my application and said, sorry, we're rejecting it. That was a bit of a blow because I thought everything about this was perfect. It's like Hashem sees my checklist. And it's like, yep, check, 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 check. Everything about this is great. They can accommodate, they can give financial assistance. They have an option to live in a suburb, which is what I would want to do anyway on my own. I don't want to be in Tel Aviv for various reasons. And that's sometimes what you see with these accommodations because they provide housing as part of your like package in different Israeli apartments. But I guess it wasn't meant to be. That's what I
Yeah,
tried.
Ella, have you heard of the WUJIS program, World Union Jewish Students Program?
I have not,
Oh, yeah,
actually.
it's been around for decades.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think it's half a year Ulpan, and then half a year they place you in
Hmm.
something in your profession.
Hmm. Interesting. Something to think about.
Yeah.
I think for me, I wanted to start small because this is still a new, as exciting as it is, this is still going to be a whole new ball game for me.
How long was this program that you
This
thought
would
you
have been for
could?
5 months, which was I was aiming for 4, but this one came up to 5, so I was like, well, okay, it's another 4 weeks. You know, it'd be one thing if I wanted to extend it, but to start off, like I wanted small, just because I didn't want to jump in to a year or close to a year from day one, just because I said maybe it'll be great. I'm sure it will be good, but I need to just have my time for just a small amount first, and then if I want, I can proceed and add to it. So ultimately, I guess this one wasn't meant to be, but I talked to the advisor this morning and I explained everything. And she said, well, we definitely have other options. Even she couldn't believe why was I, just dropped like that without any reasons. But as I try to remind myself, Hashem is in control. And even though maybe this program had everything going for me, maybe down the line, now that I'm applying, he saw something that would be a problem. Whatever it might be, I might never know. But I think there has to be something that is similar to some aspect because why would I be given all these other options that would have been really good fit for me? So that's where I stand right now. And I think basically as a final note, I've said it many times, but ultimately Israel's impacted my life in ways I didn't expect. It made me think about a lot of things. It's made me see different perspectives through the eyes of people who live there, whether it be people like the Weidmans or people were born in Israel, like the men and women I met on Birthright or my tour advisor, my tour guide, sorry, or just people on the street or going into a store, walking in the shuk, anything, things that I would probably not experience in other ways. It's allowed me to experience, and I think ultimately it's been for the good, and I look forward to what's next.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Everyone, please unmute yourselves if you want to. I muted a few people. I'm sorry because somebody's phone rang or something. So if I muted you without letting you know, I apologize. But I didn't want to interrupt Yaela with, I don't know, whatever ringtone.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Yaela. It was
You're welcome.
wonderful to hear
thank
your passion about Israel, something we really found inspiring, especially at this time.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's something actually, thank you for mentioning that, because that's something I had wanted to also say was that I think again seeing the help from up above that we only have things happen the way they're supposed to be. If I had done my trip after the Chagim, I would never have been able to go. I still probably would have been waiting. I got home 5 days before.
Oh,
I
wow.
I got home. It was over Chol Hamoed,
Oh,
Sukkot.
right. Is that Josh and Arya got back on October 2nd?
Yeah.
You got
So
back
Yeah.
on
I
at the same
I
time. Right.
landed and then still processing the trip and wow, what did I do? And still some jet lag and this and this. Then Simchas Torah ends and rockets firing, this. Some of the places I just stayed or I visited.
Hmm.
So I think for me to then go and say, it was obviously still scary to say it, but I felt with strong passion. I said, doesn't matter. I don't mean this second, but I'm going back.
Mhm.
I can't, I can't let
This season.
this
Yeah.
stand. I mean, obviously, it's not to say I'm not still nervous. And even now, I have people approach me, you're going with everything going on. Yes, I'm not thrilled about it, but
I'm glad to know the programs are still running. I mean, I know a lot of things
yeah.
stopped for a few months.
They did. And that's
Um,
something that that's something that the advisor was saying was she said like it blows her mind between like say like birthright or even like birthright trips and even birthright in general is sending volunteer groups. I think maybe they've done it before, but they're doing it frequently. Not sorry, Destination Israel. That was the name of the program I was applying to, but Masa's got all these volunteer programs constantly running and running and running all different times, different lengths of periods. Sometimes it's about 10 days or a week or so. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. Sometimes it's four. Sometimes it's six.
yeah, I see
And
a lot of those emails since Arya went on birthright. I mean, his was delayed by COVID, but um not as long as yours. And then of course he got COVID. But I mean, I
yeah,
am glad those are running and I see those Masa
too.
programs and I didn't know that was what you were doing. How is your Hebrew? I'm just curious.
So it's not bad. I mean, I'm not as fluent as obviously a natural born Israeli,
Of course.
but I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be perfect. But it's
People are
amazing.
people
Oh,
tend to be very, if they know you're trying,
yeah, yeah, and that's
they're very
something that
they're
also was
very-
very moving to me was that people could see I was trying, and if it took a little longer for me to get a sentence out, like one time, I think in my first trip, I was trying to find something in a store, and it took me maybe like a minute or so to actually phrase the question. I had to stop and think, and it was something so simple as like, "Do you have a Kiddush cup? Like, do you have any in stock?" Something so simple, but for me to stop and think, like, wait a minute, how does this translate to Hebrew? The person could see I was trying, and even though it took time, he's like, Kosher Kidos can. Like, lo, lo, lo. Like, they didn't have it. But it was incredible to see. And something I was just gonna say was how even though it's been so many years since I've been in school and would have been especially like exposed because that's how I learned through Shas and in Providence, neat as I continued in high school, we would do all different types of things trying to learn and practice Hebrew. So even though it's been a while, it's amazing after a little bit of time that I'm there how much it comes back to me, and I remember more than I thought that I would probably remember. So. Ulpan is part of with Masa. They definitely have that as part of the program, and they'll place you kind of based on your level. So I don't know everything, but I not like knowing like this. So I'm probably in the middle.
English works in most places anyway. I mean,
Yeah,
you can
I
get
was
by a
noticing
lot
that.
with English. I'm saying, um, I still remember this was many, many years ago. Actually, I think it was my first trip to Israel. So I went as the summer of freshman year in college, and I
Mhm.
think I went into a store and I wanted to get a box of candles, and I'm struggling to say it in Hebrew and
Mhm.
whatever. And the guy answers me in English. So how many do you want in the box? But English will do. But the other thing is, we were actually in Israel over Pesach. We went, and I mean, I don't know how it would be if you were near where the actual, October 7th
Right.
occurred, but we were in Yerushalayim. It was fine. We were in Tel Aviv. It was fine. My kids went up to Tzfas, and, so
Hmm.
life is
Yeah.
continuing there, and it
Yeah.
was very safe. I mean, it drove me home a little bit when I wanted to insure my trip, and I called
Hmm.
up, and I said, "So where are you going? Israel. I need to speak to a manager. I'm back
Oh
with.
boy.
I'm going to insure you if you're going to a country that has a war going on.
Yeah.
Don't feel it in the country. I mean,
Yeah.
unless a few certain places. I mean, we did
Right.
Beirut, and we could hear,
Mm.
the IDF's bombs going off in
Yeah.
Gaza. But the
Mm.
other thing, I also, when you were talking about even the first time, every time I go to Israel and we're pulling into the airport, the only thought I always have was Moshe Rabbeinu davened to Hashem to be able to do this, and I could just
Right.
pick up on a plane and go and land.
I like that. I'm gonna have to keep that in mind every time that I go because that's another really amazing perspective and
That
that's something
always struck me.
my
Like,
my dad and
he
I always talk
davened
about
so
that.
much for this, and
Yeah,
he
and he
wasn't,
couldn't go.
and I could just get on a plane, and a couple hours
Show my
later I'm in
passport and I'm
Israel.
good.
Yeah. So it always, anyway, I hope everything works out for you. I
Thank
think it
you.
would be really good for you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thanks, Yaela. You did a beautiful job
Thank
capturing
you.
the emotional side of a trip like
Mhm.
that.
Thank you.
Amazing, amazing.
In general, my personality is more sensitive, emotional, so I think especially that's tapped into my experiences in many, many ways. And also even just the energy, as I said, like in general, I think I'm very sensitive to energy. So throughout Israel, but especially certain places like Yerushalayim for sure and Sfat, like something that our tour guide was saying, how there's four especially like very holy, very special cities in Israel, and it's almost compared to the elements,
Mm.
and that like each one is designated, in its own, fashion, and I could feel it. I really could feel it walking, with the group, or even when I went into places myself. I could feel it going around, and it's very healing, very happy, very pure, very awe-inspiring, and probably countless words I could say.
Mm.
Loved everything you said and
Thank
just
you.
how you said it.
Thank you.
Very well presented.
Kol hakavod.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you for sharing.
Much
My
and good luck with
pleasure.
everything. The program, like you said, Hashem's in charge.
Yeah.
That one just wasn't it for this time,
Right.
and this reason.
Right.
So that's
Exactly. It's not always easy. I mean, over the years, I mean, a big thank you, especially to Tamar Miller, for helping me grow with Emuna and Bitachon, and definitely all my teachers in Providence have helped instill that in me. And it's been a journey just by itself over, I don't know how many years, at least high school for sure. And it's not easy, but you got to just step aside and just say, yeah, Hashem is the one running the show and he knows what I need. So if this is not the program, then there's obviously one that's better. Maybe it's identical, but something about that one would be better. Or as I said, like how I thought, like, was it like I wonder if is it going to be better and not better, but ultimately going to Israel first to see the Weidmans and be there for David's wedding versus birthright. But I think it actually was better for me going for the wedding first because it gave me a little bit more familiarity of what to expect just with the traveling even and just seeing in the land, giving me a taste and having that yearning like, yeah, I gotta really do birthright now. I gotta get back there. I gotta feel it. I gotta see it. And by the time I was able to go back, it was a whole new experience, as I said, but at least in certain ways, especially as I said, like with the flight, I knew what to expect. I knew like what it's like to be on that type of a flight and doing the airport because that was all still new to me, up until that point. So I think for many reasons that obviously is just one, but I think it was meant that birthright comes second, and I'm glad that I got in because I was in the final year that I could have done it. And as it turned out, actually, a good majority of the kids were, well, not a good majority, but several of them were actually my age or drop younger, even on the Israeli side. So that was interesting to see, like, oh, like I'm not the oldest. I wasn't concerned about that, but I thought, like, oh, am I going to be the oldest here? Like with some of the 18, 19-year-olds, like, it's okay. I can live with it. It is what it is. It's not the worst thing. And nope, the majority of them were probably 20, 21 and older. And then several of them were 25, 26, even some were about to turn 27. So that was, or even one girl was actually 27. So that was, that was nice. Um, but yeah, Hashem really is the one in control and we gotta give it to him. We can't just step and say, yeah, I know better because we don't.
You sound very wise. And
Thank
you're
you.
much younger than me, so that's kind of odd for me. But
Thank you.
The perfect speaker and topic for
Aw,
an ER Sipper
thank you.
Torah.
Especially because with Yom Ha'atzmaut this month, that's how I was approached
Mhm.
because of Yom Ha'atzmaut in Israel and knowing that I've had this experience and so much going on since literally not, as I said, not even 2 years, like rapid, like the ball just got rolling, that this might be the very appropriate time to talk about, publicly, because I think people have kind of heard, bits and pieces here and there over the time, but nobody's really heard, at least that I can think of, from start to finish. So I'm glad that I was able to speak to everybody and have the opportunity to share this experience and
Well,
know that,
when you say finish, you mean to be continued.
right, we'll really like to. Exactly, that's probably a better way to say it. But yeah, obviously to be continued and like up until, the next step, wherever it, may be. I mean, I know this is definitely going to happen, but whatever the next step is in addition or, as part of it, then that's what it'll be.
well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who came, and nice to see everyone. And I wish you, Pesach Sheni over, but
Yeah,
a good rest of the month. Am Yisrael Chai.
definitely. I'm Yisrael.
On the
Hi.
trail high.
Forever.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good
Thank
night.
Good to see
you.
all of you.
Wonderful to
Night.
see you.